when you applied to the journalism school, right? Or the communication school. And in the journalism school, there's also a public relations program. And there are various sub-programs that we have across the school. Well, I've spent about the past 18 months going out talking to chief executive officers and HR people and saying, what are you looking for when you hire young people? What are you looking for when you hire folks? What skills? And they said the skills we're looking for are not in silos. Yes, we want PR students, but we want PR students who understand journalism. And yes, we want journalism students, but we want them to be familiar with the communication theories and other sorts of things. So what we're going to be doing over the next coming years, really, and this is an experiment which we think is going to succeed, and we're very excited about it, is to provide you with the opportunity and the encouragement to experiment across the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. Okay? So that's the big message. That's the point of today's discussion. And to lead that discussion, I have invited some of our leading faculty who themselves are at the cutting edge of working across disciplines. I mean, the talent that we have before us that you will hear, these are people who work in a dozen different things in 10 different countries. I was just talking to Roberto Sorrow, who has 19 different joint appointments, I think, at this point. Just got back from Cuba leading a group down there of students from all across the school. So the notion here then is that we will have common experiences, one of which includes reading the same book. You heard Max Nikias talk about the importance of reading, and not only digital leadership competencies, but others as well. So we are inviting all of you, that's a strong invitation, right? I mean, there won't be a test necessarily, but it might be a pop quiz. Inviting you to read A New Culture of Learning, Cultivating the Imagination for a World of Constant Change, which is the world that we're all now living in. And it's written by Doug Thomas, who's one of our own faculty members, and a thought leader named John Seely Brown. So please read this. It's really cool. It's even short, and it's exciting. And we'll have other opportunities to come together as one group and other groups to talk about your thinking about this book. So with that, I've asked each of my colleagues to speak for about 35 seconds. And we will start, I think, with Geneva Oberholtzer.
That sounds like you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Geneva Oberholtzer, and I'm the director of the Journalism School. So those of you who are in journalism or in public relations, welcome in particular. I welcome also, of course, all of our comm students, but it's a particular pleasure to welcome the journalism and public relations students on behalf of all of my colleagues on the faculty and staff of the Journalism School. Constant change, you all know this, not going away, certainly true in both journalism and public relations. We've talked a lot about the fact that the technology in these two fields enables them to change rapidly, but there are all kinds of additional ways in which the relationships between what we do and the people for whom and with whom we do it are changing. And so we're reinventing these fields, and we really are leaders in this innovation. You all are now beginning a chapter of your education when you will be individual actors much more than you have been in the last few years of your education, and we encourage you to be among the innovators, the inventors, the people who are reimagining two fields that have an enormous impact on the nation. This is a great place to do it. You'll be hearing about the many, many programs in which you can do that, and you'll have lots to do on this campus and in this great city, but we surely look forward to having you participate in many of the programs here at Annenberg, and that is my warm welcome to each of you. And now I introduce, thank you, my colleague Larry Gross, who runs the School of Communication. They're rude, my students. Who runs the School of Communication and who is also Vice Dean. Larry.
And I haven't started anything. And they just figured that out? Well, let me welcome you to the School of Communication as well as the School of Journalism. I hope I don't have to tell you that communication is the fundamental human activity attribute. It includes forms of communication called journalism and forms of communication called public relations. But it extends from that very ancient messaging system known as DNA, which communicates the structure of every cell in our bodies, to the newer forms of communication, much cruder than DNA, embedded in silicone chips, getting smaller and smaller. But everything we do involves communication. And when communication technologies change, as they do periodically, the invention of the alphabet, the invention of the printing press, the invention of recording and broadcasting technologies, everything changes. A change in communication technology changes the world. It changes every aspect of our lives. And you are a generation that was born at the beginning of the latest communication technology revolution. In your lives, everything has been changing. And, interestingly enough, everything is going to continue to change for a while. These revolutions are faster than they used to be, but they unfold in real time, and in this case, that real time is your life. So there is no better time to be a student of communication than to be here in the ground floor of this incredible communications technological revolution that is changing everything about our lives. Revolutions are made by young people who are not invested in the old ways, so you're the revolutionary generation here. And it is really going to be exciting for us as teachers to work with you to understand these changes that are new to us just as they're new to you. It is really a terrific time to be studying and understanding communication. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that there is no better place to be doing that than here at the Annenberg School, the University of Southern California. So welcome. And who do I give this to? Delighted to hand the microphone to my colleague, friend, former dean, Jeffrey Cowan.
Thanks, Larry. And this spring, I'll be teaching a class, probably in this classroom, I think, with Dean Wilson, that I hope a lot of you will take, which is about the way in which these two worlds converge. But I brought a prop with me. I don't know if any of you have seen this before because technology has been changing. This is a newspaper. The Los Angeles Times. Hopefully it'll still be here in the spring if you take this class. But on the front page, this is the front page of the paper. On the front page of the paper, as a prop, fortunately, today's paper has a poll, a political opinion poll, sponsored by the USC Annenberg School and the Los Angeles Times. Front page story. And tomorrow's New York LA Times will have front page story again about another part of this poll. This poll is about people's attitudes toward the presidential election and some key issues. The poll tomorrow will be about what media they use and how it affects their opinion of things. I just want to use this poll as a prop. It happens to be something the center that I run has been doing, and we're having both political conventions. We'll be having meetings with leading journalists and political figures that we're doing in partnership with the Harvard Institute of Politics and with Bloomberg. But you couldn't put together something like this if you didn't have multidisciplinary training. So this is a journalism story. It's media. This, by the way, is a small version of what we're doing at both conventions. But it also requires you to understand history and understand public opinion and understand public relations and to understand statistics, to think about how you do this kind of a political poll. And so I think that this story on the front page of today's Los Angeles Times, which is getting national attention, it's the top story in Google News, illustrates the incredible opportunities in front of you to learn about the multiple things that we'll be teaching you here at the Annenberg School for Communication. And I think we now each introduce our successor, keeping to under 3 minutes apiece. And I'm pleased to introduce Phyllis Gutierrez.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thanks for keeping us on schedule. And let me add my welcome. My name is Phyllis Gutierrez. I'm a professor of journalism and communication. So one way or another, we're probably going to touch base with each other while we're here. And I'm very glad that you came to USC. One of the things you learn when you come to the university is your grades got you in, your test scores get you in. But for the next level, it's what you do here beyond the classroom that helps get you out to that next stop. Generally, they're not going to ask you what was your GPA when you go out for a job. They're going to say, what did you do with your education? We saw you took editing. We saw you took a writing or reporting or a production class. What did you do? What did you produce? And we realize that here. And part of this is to afford our students opportunities to take what they're learning and put it into the public sphere, into the public arena, so other people can see it. What we're going to share with you today is a project that was put together by students last spring. It included both journalism and communication students, and it was featured around someone you probably have never heard of by the name of Ruben Salazar. Ruben Salazar, I think you can see that, was the most prominent Mexican-American journalist in the United States in the 1950s and 1960s, a time when journalism, either print or broadcast, was very male and very pale. There were not a lot of people of color, and if you were a woman, you probably were covering feature stories or soft news and such. So he was a breakthrough metropolitan reporter in El Paso, his hometown first, then in San Francisco, and then in the Los Angeles Times. And he covered a number of stories that are very important today, that were new then, covering about communities that were not well covered, that were not well understood in the media. He also was a Vietnam correspondent and was Mexico City bureau chief for the newspaper. His family, he was honored with a stamp by the U.S. Postal Service in 2008, and he also has buildings named after him. And last year his family gave his personal papers to USC. He's a very public life, very well known, but people don't know much of his private life. So we offered students the opportunity that you would think no student would take. A chance to go into the library archives, into musty, dusty, 50-year-old pieces of paper and see what stories they could find, see what stories they could do. And we didn't know what was in there. None of it was cataloged. It was like going into your garage and just taking out a bunch of stuff. You know, they said, here's the boxes, come and get them. So we had 9 students that signed up for it. Professor Roberto Hernandez also taught the class. And we put together a timeline of his life, which you've seen up here as we've been talking. And then the most interesting part, we just illustrate pictures when he was born and such, was the students went deeper into stories. They found elements in the timeline, and they did feature stories on specific aspects of his life. And Robert, why don't you share one of those with them and see what they can do. But they did the writing. They used the pictures from what we saw. Okay.
There's just one story out of many that looked at his personal archive, photographing his briefcase, getting family photos, a variety of different things to illustrate different aspects of his life. It's a cool site that we are launching very soon publicly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So they did the writing, they put it together. These are the kind of projects you can get involved with, and we hope you'll take full advantage of what you can do both in the classroom and beyond the classroom while you're here. And now the next person to follow is Josh Kuhn, who is much more high-tech. What is it going to show us high-tech today?
No high-tech.
All right, welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Felix. So I have a confession, guys. I threw a wish in the well. Don't ask me, though. I'll never tell. I looked to you as it fell, and now you're in my way. I'd trade my soul for a wish, pennies and dimes for a kiss. I wasn't looking for this, but now you're in my way. Your stare was holding ripped jeans. Skin was showing. Hot night. Wind was blowing. Where you think you're going, baby? Help me out. Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. But here's my number. So call me baby. So this is what I teach about. I teach about popular music and how it does that to us, how we all know the words to a song that individually I'm sure you would all deny that you knew the words to that song, and figure out how that song became as popular as it is, not because people are buying records or CDs, but because people are watching videos of that song on YouTube, sharing those videos, be they original videos or President Obama mashup versions of that video or Justin Bieber's version of that video, and on and on and on, and then sharing those links via Twitter. And suddenly all of us, regardless of where we come from, what language we were raised speaking, what part of the city, what part of the country, how we identify in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of class, we all just said those words. And so that's the stuff that I try to teach. I do research programs with both comm students and journalism students that typically partner with institutions throughout Los Angeles. Just two quick examples. One, we did a museum exhibit earlier this year with the Grammy Museum, where I had 17 students from both schools helping me to curate an entire exhibit at the museum on the history of popular music in Los Angeles between 1945 and 1975, where the students actually helped pick the artifacts and design the galleries. And the project we're just finishing right now is called Songs in the Key of LA, that is about another dusty archive, the sheet music archive of the LA Public Library. Old school sheet music. I don't know if any of you know what that even looks like, but we're determined to bring sheet music sexy back. And these are all sheet music songs about Los Angeles. There'll be a book, there's going to be an online database for the public library, and then a series of concerts featuring contemporary LA musicians reinterpreting songs from the late 1800s and early 1900s. So if any of that sounds fun to you guys, check out some of my classes. I run something called the Popular Music Project that can help you get involved with all these kinds of things. So thank you, and next up is Kirsten Thorson.
Hi, I'm Kirsten. They made me follow Josh last year, too. I don't sing, I don't study music. I'm a professor. My home is in journalism, in public relations, but I also work and teach in communication as well. And that's awesome because that's where my mind is. I am both a researcher and a former practitioner. I used to work in, how many of you are PR? Yeah, that's right. Okay, awesome. Nothing wrong with that. So I used to work in PR and in corporate communications, and now what I study and what I'm interested in is young people and political participation. When I say young people, I mean you, young, but also younger than you and a little bit older than you. And when I say participation, I don't mean just voting, like, oh, it's election season, you should vote. Although it's election season and you should vote, or, that would be wrong. But other things like, getting angry about the environment, talking about stuff on Facebook, wearing t-shirts, buying stuff from companies that you love and not buying stuff from companies you hate. But what I really am interested in is how the opportunities to do those kinds of things, as well as, maybe more importantly, the opportunities to avoid doing those kinds of things and ways of getting engaged in the world are changing radically with the changing media environment. And, as we've already said a couple of times, obviously you're growing up in this environment, but I think the cool thing about being here is that instead of just playing in Facebook or playing on Twitter or playing on the millions of other things you can play in, this is the place where you get an opportunity to really understand what you're doing and what it's going to mean for the world. The choices that you make are going to mean for the world. So that means I do research on things like, why do some people talk about politics on Facebook and why do some people hate that with a passion? Why does it matter? Is it different online and offline? Are there spaces that are safe for you to talk about politics and to be a total nerd and to be angry about stuff, and there are places that aren't? And what are the pathways that lead people in those directions? I guess just in closing quickly, first of all, if anyone wants to work on that stuff, awesome. I think it's really a lot of exciting things going on here. But also, this place is really a great place for learning what I think is going to be the most valuable thing for you in a few years, which is to be able to see through multiple perspectives and see through multiple lenses. Because a lot of the stuff that used to be separate, right, like the people who made media used to be separate from the people who watched media, and now that's not true anymore, or even arguably, and nobody beat me up for this, PR and journalism used to be these radically separate things, but now there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot of skills and a lot of passions, a lot of interests that really cross between them. So I welcome you all here, and I'm so excited to see you, and hopefully over the next 4 years I will meet a lot of you. And coming up next is the amazing Diane Winston.
Thanks, Kirsten. I'm Diane Winston, and I work in media and religion. Now, media is entertaining, it's informing, it's illuminating, it's educating, but mostly it tells stories. These stories can be the who, what, when, why of journalism, or they can be the more intricate machinations of TV shows, films, webisodes, radio programs. They can, but whether they're news or whether they're entertainment, basically those stories are trying to push several basic questions, questions that often don't occur to us immediately because we're more entertained by the color, the characterizations, the plotting, the details, the themes, the motifs, the sub-motifs, and so we kind of unintentionally just sort of suck up what really is going on. And what really is going on are stories that ask us the very basic questions that face all of us. Who am I? What's my purpose? And what the heck is going on here? That's the basis of most stories. And what I do in my research and in my classes is explore that with students and with the general public. So next semester I'm teaching a course called Com 426, Religion and Media. And in that course we look at television and we kind of look at dramatic television series and see how they deal with issues of evil, good and evil, gender, family, relationships, community, personal responsibility. And we look at shows, new shows like Breaking Bad or Dexter. We look at old shows like The Sopranos or Homicide. And we ask ourselves, you know, what kind of messages are these shows giving us? If you're interested in the kind of work we do that way, you can go on YouTube and see some of the old, we've had people, David Simon from The Wire, we've had David Shore from House come in and talk with us about that. I also teach a course on religion and foreign policy, which looks at media from church newspapers to the New York Times to ask, how do ideas about Jews, Christians, and Muslims form the way we look at the Middle East and our Middle East policy? So I'm hoping that I see some of you in my classes. If you too are interested in how media affects the way we look at the world, the way we think about our own identity, and the way we try to decide what to do with our lives, then we're on the same track, and I look forward to working with you. And now I want to introduce my esteemed colleague, Roberto Sorrow.
Hi. I'm the person with the weird joint appointments. I mean, part of me is over at the policy school where I teach immigration policy and run a research institute that looks for applied social science solutions to policy challenges that arise from immigration. Here at Annenberg, I do a variety of things. This fall, I'm teaching a course on communication strategies for influencing public policy. That looks at some really interesting new ways of thinking about policy change, behavior change, how the brain processes political ideas, and how that knowledge is being used by public relations and communications people working for advocacy groups, philanthropies, and think tanks. To try and influence public policies. And I hope anybody who's interested in either public policy or these kind of communication strategies will join us. It's being co-taught by David Morris, who recently retired as Vice President of Communications for Robert Woods Johnson and previously was VP for Communications at the Pew Charitable Trust. I think the reason I'm here is to talk about another kind of experiment I was involved in this summer. This was this course that went to Cuba that Dean Wilson mentioned. It was purposely meant to offer an entirely different kind of educational experience. So most of what you do here is kind of diffused over a 15-week semester, where you're doing a lot of other things. This was 5 weeks, almost 24/7 the whole time. Complete immersion in one subject and a very project-based kind of start, middle, finish type of experience. You often do a lot of work alone as students. This was very much meant to be a team exercise. You often work with students who have the same skills or interests in the same disciplines, This class had people from public relations, from journalism, undergraduates, graduates, public diplomacy, comm students. It was purposely meant to be a cross-section of the entire school and a very wide age range as well, and a very wide range of experiences. While you do a lot of work in familiar surroundings here, this was a lot of time on the road, and most of it in a place that's quite uncanny and exotic. We went to Washington and met with people at think tanks on Capitol Hill, at the State Department, went to Miami and met with folks across the whole range of opinion there, from moderates to some of the most virulent anti-Castro exile groups, and then spent 10 days in Havana in a partnership with the University of Havana. Classroom work with professors there, a lot of encounters with other students, and then field trips to a great variety of different kinds of experiences, from encounters with people really at the heart of the Communist Party to people on the fringes of politics there, and a great deal more. The objective was that everybody was looking at the same set of phenomena, the transitions that are underway in Cuba as the Castro leadership gives way and the economy changes, and the same challenges of trying to figure out what's true, what's not true, what to leave in, what to leave out, but then producing very different kinds of products, feature stories about young people, about food, about memos on how NGOs could approach communication strategies in Cuba, and a great deal more. Hoping to do again something similar next summer. And now I am introducing Mike Annenberg. Mike Annenberg? Am I right? Close. And I hope I've got the right order, because I think it's switched. Are you next?
Yeah.
No, just say. All right.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Annenberg. That's the last name, but you can call me Mike. The last name's really tricky for everyone, so no worries about it. And Josh, I got to get a song. I realized I totally need that, but my only connection is both Carly Rae Jepsen and Justin Bieber hail from Canada, which is where I'm from as well. So I think there's a research project in there somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So I feel a little weird welcoming you here, because it's actually my first week at Annenberg as well. I'm a new faculty member in communication and journalism, and I'm actually coming from a postdoc that I did at Microsoft Research, and before that was at Stanford and the MIT Media Lab. And one of the things that I think sort of organizes my work and how I think about these things is really trying to straddle these boundaries between technology design and journalism. And one of the reasons I'm sort of interested in the news and the press and how the press works is that I see news stories as sort of starting points. The newspaper story that Jeffrey mentioned, these are sort of starting points for figuring out how are we alike, how are we not alike, what are the points of contention that we have, what are we going to do about public policy decisions, and how are we going to kind of move forward as collectives, as people who have to relate to each other. But I think one of these things that's defining starting points today is that they're not only coming from news organizations, they're also coming from technology companies. So I think a lot of you probably, when you look on your Twitter trending topics, your Facebook sponsored news stories, the recommended just for you lists that are in a lot of news organizations, these are pieces of software. These are technologies that actually are telling you, hey, pay attention to this, don't pay attention to this other thing. These are starting points that software designers have made for you. And one of the things I'm really interested in is, how do these things get made? Why do these starting points exist? Why are you being pointed to one story and not another story? And how are the little trails that you leave as you travel the internet sort of leaving clues for what kinds of things that news organizations think you might be interested in? So I purposely kind of try to sit at this intersection of how do software designers work, how do they think, what are the decisions that they make, but then what are the news values that sort of guide those decisions and guide those makings? So I think it's one of the reasons that it's really exciting to be at Annenberg to do this work, is exactly this blurring between communication and journalism, is that these tools and these software are, I think if you understand how they work, you're going to actually be really well equipped to pivot into a number of different kinds of professions or kinds of careers, whether it's starting up your own company, or being a software designer, or being a journalist yourself, or working in the communications industry in some way. So I teach courses on these topics. Please come talk to me if you're interested in sort of sitting at that boundary between tech and journalism. Thanks very much. I don't know who's next.
I hate this new. Here it is. Okay. Hi, I'm John Taplin, and this is Gabe Kahn. I'm the director of the Annenberg Innovation Lab, and Gabe runs all the journalism programs associated with the lab. We are truly a multidisciplinary lab that crosses not only this school, but has a lot of professors in the lab from the engineering school, the cinema school, the education school, the business school, the art school, and the music school. We are a corporate sponsored lab. These are the companies that support the lab, and if you're interested in actually making things, it is a design research lab. You'll see it off the west lobby. It's a big open white space, and we hope that you will come and join us. And I don't know, Gabe, maybe we'll talk just a little bit about what we do. On one side, we do a lot of work in big data. We do some of the most cutting-edge work in analyzing either politics or entertainment through Twitter and Facebook feeds, using some pretty cutting-edge tools that have been invented at the Viterbi Engineering School, a lab called SAIL, Signals Analysis Interpretation Lab, along with a lot of support from IBM for their platforms. Maybe you'd talk a little bit about Crisis Connection, Gabe?
Sure. One thing I just want to say here is that this might all seem very technical and the list of companies might seem a little intimidating, but I just want to say that, you know, for the journalism half of the room, but really for everybody here, this is really the most exciting time in human history to be involved in journalism and communications. And, you know, one thing that we've done, for example, with Crisis Connection is a tool that is it's a reporting tool, but it's also a public safety tool. It basically enables a broad swath of people to report on an event, an earthquake or something like that, in real time, so that news organizations, fire departments, and everybody else can all sort of join together and understand that event collectively in real time. But that's just sort of one example of what we're doing. And I guess the other point that I want to make is that the barriers to entry for getting involved in the lab are very low. And I hope that you guys will all really sort of take advantage of this, because if you saw that list of companies, really they're there because they want to connect with you. And I hope that you understand that, because you've got a lot more leverage in this relationship than you might realize. They're very curious about how you're consuming media, what your habits are, what kind of things you'd like to be able to do. And they really want to kind of connect with you, and you know, we hope that you guys will take advantage of that and try and get involved in projects so you can kind of share that with them and with us and create something really exciting.
There's just one other thing we want to mention. We run a student design contest every year that has a $30,000 prize, made up of students from different schools. We call it a hustler, a hacker, and a designer. And strangely enough, the hustlers tend to come from the Annenberg School because they know how to sell something, and that's really critical. And you can find a hacker from the Viterbi School, of all the Viterbi kids that come in. And you know, the designers often come from the art school. So we hope you'll get involved in that. There's sessions. If you go on annenberglab.org, you will be able to see all the information that we do. Sign up there, and you'll get all the e-newsletters and everything, and we hope you'll come see us. Thanks. Oh, and now Dan Durbin.
Figure out how to escape from there. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, that was very nice. You're clearly Annenberg students. You know how to say good morning very loudly. So let me get this for a moment. Outside of the fact that this is the University of Southern California, and in 4 months will once again be, as it rightfully should be, the home of the national champion USC Trojan football team. You may ask yourself why the hell we study sports at the University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. Well, one of the reasons that I tell people, and this is far too complicated to cover in 3 minutes, and I'm doing my auctioneer voice to get it done in 3 minutes. But one of the reasons I tell people is, of course, sports exist in our culture through the media that carry the communication, create the narratives about sports. For instance, as I tell my sports classes at the start of every semester, if you put 22 guys out in the field and have them beat the hell out of each other, you have 22 guys in the field beating the hell out of each other. You put them in a stadium, put lights on it, an audience in the crowd, put it on television, call it the Super Bowl, and you have the unofficial American holiday, the week during which more food is sold every year outside of Thanksgiving than before any other holiday during the entire calendar year. So sports exist as this content for media. And one of the things we do here is study how the sports impact media and answer questions like one question that's been running around and asked by the BBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, the LA Times, and several other sources of faculty in Annenberg over the last few months. Why in a world of diminishing audiences in classic media like television for individual programming, like Breaking Bad is a huge hit even though it has like a 2.5 rating or something like that, why is sports and why are sports events breaking records, all-time records in television viewership? The most watched television show ever is the last Super Bowl, and this year's Olympics, couldn't even remember it, it's just happened. This year's Olympics was the most watched Olympics ever on American television. Why is that in this diminishing market? And that's the sort of thing that we answer here. I want to point out 4 things very quickly about the institute that we've got here and about the studies in sports communication that we have. Just things that you can personally get involved in or should look up. Number 1 is newer faculty. We have some of the top faculty around in the study of sports. William Morgan is just starting this fall teaching classes in sports ethics and critical studies of sports. If you ask anyone in the know in sports research around the country, they will list Bill Morgan as one of the top 1 or 2 in the country, which means essentially in the world, scholars in sports philosophy. Alan Abramson was named this summer one of the top tweets that you had to follow during the Olympics. He's an Olympics reporter. He's teaching now in the journalism school in sports. And so I'm kind of the schmuck who comes along with the deal. I just try to keep everybody happy. But these people are actually stars in their field. We also, of course, have Jay Adande, who's on ESPN all the time teaching. So you have all sorts of outstanding faculty that you can take classes from. Also, we have internships that are being offered through Annenberg that aren't offered anywhere else, including MD for Sports, which is a developing online reporting service for medical injuries in sports, is going to be offering, I think it's 5 or 6 paid internships for content production through Annenberg and through our institute this coming semester. We publish over 100 internships every month involving the Clippers, the Lakers, the NBC Sports, and a whole variety of other bodies, Fox Sports and others. You really should check those out because they're tremendous opportunities to get in the field. And if you want to get into the sports or sports media field, if you know anything about it, you know as large and impacting as it is, the people with the power are in a very small cluster. The best way to get in is to get involved. And finally, last thing, and I know I burned through my 3 minutes already. We've made a teensy-tiny innovation to Twitter for aggregating some stuff, and we're going to be developing an online Twitter conversation around campus on sports and sports research. And you'll learn more about that in classes and other places. Those are just a few of the opportunities. If you want to look up what we do, check out the USC Annenberg Institute of Sports Media and Society's website. It's up there. You can check the address. And now, because you loved him so much before, I would like to introduce once again, returning for an encore, Gabe Kahn. I almost said Gabe Kaplan. That would have been Welcome Back, Cotter. Sorry. Gabe Kahn and Chris Smith.
All right. Here we go.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to USC Annenberg. My name is Chris Smith. I'm a professor in the communication school, and I'm really delighted to see all of you here. It's a real blessing to be congregated here together on this journey of self-discovery that you're about to undertake. And I mean that seriously. It's going to be a lot of fun. You've heard from a lot of people. I think one of the things you'll definitely take away is that the marketplace for information, whether it's in communication, journalism, or public relation, is changing by leaps and bounds every second of every day. And one of the things that we thought would be really important here at Annenberg is to give you a coherent, curriculum-based program where you could really understand the big picture of how those changes connect all three of these fields. When you understand that big picture, when you understand that each one of these fields forms a marketplace where goods and services are created and disseminated frequently, most frequently in capitalist societies for profit, you can really then understand how you want to position yourself within any one of these fields. Because the fact of the matter is, within 4 years, you're probably going to have to take more of a leadership role in surviving on your own. And that means you're going to have a saleable good or service to provide. You're in information industries. You're at a school that specializes in information. So we really believe that the Media Economics and Entrepreneurship program, which I helped co-direct with Gabe Kahn, will give you the tools to really feel confident about how you can take a role in shaping any of these industries. Just to give you a quick anecdote about how this is very, very real, I was lucky enough to be at the Olympics in London this summer, and I was there about 2.5 weeks into the games, maybe 2 weeks, maybe less, somewhere around the midpoint. And I was at a dinner sponsored by NBC Universal, which was the media entity broadcasting the games here in the United States. They'd spent scads of money to have the rights to broadcast the games. There was a lot of controversy about the decision they made about delaying the games. Well, in any case, I was at a dinner table with Steve Burke, who's the CEO of the company, Steve Capus, who's the director of NBC News, and John Miller, who's the CEO of NBC Sports. All night, all we discussed was how, whether in sports, content distribution, the distribution of news, the distribution of content, how things have changed. But more than that, what are the decisions one could make to stay ahead of those changes? That's what the M2E program is all about, keeping you a step ahead so that you can take a seat beside these decision makers like of the type I mentioned and contribute meaningfully to what they're trying to do, or to shape a company of your own and help change the world. So I would ultimately say that there are a lot of different ways you can get involved. Courses, research projects, we have events. One of the reasons why I mentioned those 3 individuals from NBCU is because we have individuals like that come to our classes, come to give speeches at this school all the time. One of the beauties of this school is you don't just get to see those people from afar like you're looking at me right now. You get to interact and mingle with those people, work with them, find out what they're discussing. And another reason why I mentioned that anecdote, I was very happy to speak with all of those individuals about how NBCU had hired 21 USC students, specifically Annenberg students, to intern at the games. And it gave me a great sense of pride. Not all of them were media economics and entrepreneurship trained, but I take great confidence in telling you that if you take M2E courses, if you take an entire sequence of courses in a programmatic way, you will be one of those 21, not just working in an internship, but having a meaningful career. Thank you very much.
Just to add to that for a moment, one thing that we're really trying to do here is sort of break the lock that the business school has had on the teaching of economics and business, and we just think that this is such a relevant, crucial topic for people who are looking at an industry that's changing so dramatically. And so what we really try to do is kind of teach economics and business in a way that's really relevant and useful to the students at Annenberg. And going back to what the dean said at the beginning, that's really one thing that employers are really looking for. People who understand this industry as an industry. People who understand the kind of challenges that it's facing and how the business model is being continually rewritten. And just quickly to also mention that we're really expanding the opportunities that we have for students. We have a fellowship program that places journalism students in business publications, and we're really looking to kind of really enrich the opportunities for students to get involved with this. So again, hope you take some of these courses. I think that and please talk to students who have taken them, and I think that you'll see that it's really made a difference in the way that they've approached their time here and also the way they think about what they want to do afterwards. Okay.
So next on the program is actually the dean again, but I am hogging the microphone for 1 minute. Again, Geneva Oberholtzer from the Journalism School. I wanted to mention the newest cross-school initiative. Civic engagement is very much a concern of everybody in this school, and rose high on the list at a faculty retreat about what we want to be kind of a cross-cutting value. And we have a new civic engagement and journalism initiative. It brings together some already existing media outlets, the Intersection South LA and Alhambra Source, which draw on scholarship from communication scholars who are studying how we can be effective in reaching people through these news outlets. And on Tuesday at noon, we'll have a forum on this initiative, so I hope you'll come then and hear all about it. And now I'll turn the closing over to the dean.
You can now see why this is the best communication and journalism school in the world. I'd like to, let's all give a round of applause to these incredible people. It really is. Really great work. A science fiction writer once said that the best way to understand the future is to help invent it. And so we welcome you to the Annenberg School because we anticipate that you will understand the future very well, because you will have a large part in inventing the future. That's our expectation. We have very high expectations for you. And you see you have all these great resources here to both help you invent your future, your individual future, a collective future, and the national and international future as well. But in order to fuel your brain and move this stuff forward, it's good to eat good stuff. And so I now invite you to go to Taste of Annenberg right outside and chow down. Thank you very much.